Dharma from the receiving of those to be subdued exactly as they need. May whatever virtue I've collected benefit the teachings and all transmigratory beings, and in particular may cause the essence of perfect pure laws on justice to shine forever.
Sanji Jordan Joji Bono, Saji Bodo, Jazzy Dagi Dola Sanji Jordan Joji Saji Bodo, Dola Sanji Jordan Joji Saji Bodo, Kangi Tsultrim zone tawa tamji pambi chere tambi chunu tunzi kwadam kela changze lo. Good morning. Sunday, kaze hundu kulung choban nechu seti itsangsre. Chushi pe samatene chula de gustmo and then maragombe ngaragombas chitinchiba.
제가 chertumbe kulung tawa shindu kechewa yan shadi lotsa.
Ningula solo. Davi sanzemi chugi jimbala pei mishi tsamba ninjua hasinko wale songs.
So good morning, everyone. We're looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's presentation of his middling presentation of the steps of the path to enlightenment. We're currently looking at the third point in the main outline for the text, which explains the way to listen and to teach this set of teaching. So we're going to go back to the point that we left off in the previous session, looking at the type of attitudes that we should adopt. Just found the relevant section. I think I lost the plot. One of those days. Page 16. All right. We covered that section with just a second. There is the quotation that was given by Ngagomba. Read through that in the previous week. I just need to find it. Ayo. I'll be back in a second. Just a second. I'll just look for it. All right. Let's see. Maybe it's time to just close the book and go to the beach.
Contemplating the perception of Buddha as an exalted being, generating the wish for Dharma. No. Yep. That's where we're at.
For the Dharma to last long. Yeah, this is what I had, but Geshe was picked up from another point that we covered before. I'm just kind of trying to find it out. All right, bingo. Found it. All right, so Geshe is indeed starting from the top of page 16. Therefore, the pure motivation to teach the Dharma is extremely important, and in accordance with Margomba, who said, I've never explained the Dharma without meditating upon impermanence before the session. It is crucial to review it beforehand.
Today, Nanzu Tabat Sapasang Shopi Korea, Lamrim Jin the Mandrote with the Sinsam Dile, Jan Savadro in the Mana, Kaltulayachi, Koya Megidos, Cha Sigris, and Gombo Manson cheese.
So apart from going back to the text and picking up from the point that we left in the previous week, Geshe also says that there are a couple of new faces here in the audience. And now if you jump straight into this section of the text, it might sometimes be difficult to contextualize it. So Geshe apologizes if you find it a little bit frustrating.
Then that done the Kaptu Zo de Yachi, Chugi Jimba Jimbala, paying Yushun Jong Sagi, and Chugi Jimba Jin said, the Kararis Launi. Chu Sanji Sanjom Divita Chu Laya Kasota Chu Nidun the whatever tea Laya Zo and Chu Chimba said Titonis Shuriores.
So looking again at this section of the text, we're looking at how to explain this set of teachings, and we started with considering the advantages of explaining the Dharma. Now, with respect to the pure motivation to teach the Dharma, which is said to be very important, in accordance with Margompa, who said, I never explained the Dharma without meditating upon impermanence before the teachings. It is crucial to review it beforehand. It says then that in exhortation to the extraordinary attitude, 2 groups of 20 advantages of giving the gifts of Dharma without material things and the concern for gain, respect, and the like set forth. So there is a reference here to the advantages of giving the gift of Dharma, which is sometimes called generosity of giving the Dharma. Generosity of giving the Dharma means that you give a certain explanation to someone who seeks that explanation without an expectation to be rewarded materialistically or otherwise.
Ngin Milaya, Chushi, Kadulea, Golon Kandaji Gobres, Tom Golon Kandaji Gobres, and Narana Yachik, Sansin down, and it's in the town down, Nyandala Soba, Timriji, Yala, mixing it, and Ni Cancella, Lamrim to whatever, and Ni can't what to do, and it's Degwa Mato, and it gave a touchy Mevachi, Charter Yores.
So when an explanation of the Dharma is given to others, this is called generosity of giving the Dharma, but it should be done with without an attitude that is seeking to be rewarded, either material gain or to have better reputation, to become famous and so forth. So Geshe said that, for example, here when giving a session of teachings, if his mind is controlled by such attitudes, seeking to be rewarded in one way or another, or seeking fame, reputation, and so forth, the act of teaching the Dhamma will be no more than a negative action. So in giving a session of teaching, the motivation that you should sustain is, may that be of benefit to others. That should be pure motivation. No other ulterior motives should be involved with that. other than may that be of benefit to others.
kinzaji kulong zama ji ketu waina shu ji gyachimu ji shu matu na ya kang sheba dige ani nyinging gi semla phabata ani phembala soba dinji gi ani kheba chimbu yoba ji chagores dinangsin gi dan chi chi nyinging zo yin bayina ya ani chu shingla ya sem dingi 기 대바야 부지 샤마도나야 간지 아니 견도 그거는 마마와 지지 아니 드린지 셈레야 펜비기 아니 라브자지 존나 냠비기 고노 딘디지 키케도 바나 야부여레스라
Which means that the motivation should be generated in the cleanest way possible. And even if you cannot do that extensively, at the very least, you should think, may I be of benefit to others? May I help others in developing constructive ways of thinking? Not only the one that teaches the Dharma should develop such a motivation, but also when we listen to the Dharma, we should make sure that the mind is not tainted by certain faults. And even if we currently don't have faith, we can still listen to a certain discourse and thinking, may I find it beneficial? May it be helpful in terms of developing my mind?
Tinza dachi shingin the nyingi nigi ngweni ani kolong samba namda kiu toni ani chue nishi cheba ina kan nishi cheba digi ani sozola ya ngoni gi samu tansa cheda semya pendo yaba chik chatu yores ro.
So in that way, if the person teaching the Dharma, the person listening to the Dharma, if both of them carry a positive motivation, that becomes a useful or beneficial encounter.
Dina tashujin jis kimbi sansin padumeba jimbawe rabdu chongu chu tsiksu cheba chikzam jimba sonum chelabar sonso se o diris ro kolong chowaina.
This section ends with saying, in the questions of householder Ugra Sutra, it says that the merit of a householder giving immeasurable material things is exceeded by that of an ordained person giving a single verse of Dharma.
Retanibanis Gavi Yum Sombana, Jomdin Digita, Yum Gendu Sum Seda, Dindi Mambu Yoris, the Dizu Ma and Doja Sombi Kalia, and it Tombani Densham Son Zebatas, Chur Sanjin Namki, Kuri Shimbi, Shurdan, Tembi Yondenta, Kajin Tendi, Kubaki Chawas.
Now, the next main point in that section is generating respect for the teacher and the Dharma. And it begins with when uttering the mother of the Buddhas. Now, the Buddha taught a set of sutras that are called the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras, which are called the Mother Sutras. So there are different sutras of different extents in this group of the Mother Sutras, the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras. Anyway, it says, when uttering the mother of the Buddhas, the teacher, the Buddha himself, arranged the seat and so on. Accordingly, since the Dharma is a field of veneration even for Buddhas, one should bring to mind the excellent quality of the kindness of the Dharma and its teacher and generate respect for them.
Nengachi Sungyoris, Chu Shing, Penatajan Tomanaji, Nadi Leon Digi, and Dilayachi, mixing at Desach, Natigana, David Kakulaya, and Kang Desi Chipi, and Kobyadi, Shen Cabot the Papa, Shuchi in the Tolaya, Nadigi, something, Nagil Kim Tony, Devaina, and Kolon di Matawa Chato Wallace, Digio Mares, right.
It says here, when uttering the mother of Buddhas, the teacher himself arranged the seat and so on. Now, not only he arranged the seat, it is said that he arranged the seat of emptiness, so the seat that was imbued with emptiness. So that certain references like that in scriptures. Sometimes you find reference to different seats, seats of impermanence, seats of emptiness, and so forth, which is indicative of the way that a teacher should be, the type of mental attitude, the type of motivation that a teacher should correct when they take their seat. So for example, Geshe entered this compound, this space. Then he sat upon this seat. So you shouldn't be thinking that now I'm sitting on this really impressive seat. It's much better than all the other seats in this compound. Look at me. I'm sitting on this really nice seat. So this is not the type of attitude or motivation that one should have. One should have a motivation that is completely pure and clean.
아니 차숨지 세도 와서 차숨지야디 아니 줄이야 아니 그 위치에 아니 취기 되네요 아니 취기 된게 돌아야 되지 밀어야 취세고서 tel려야 그 위치에도 아니 차숨지는 그게 아니 된디가나 되온디 아니 간지 멍멍 수도 두스지 쟤는 니게 연생기 메타비기 아니 내수도 잼비토네 아니 된디가나야 되고 거레스.
So for example, Geshe has entered this space, this compound. First of all, he offered prostration. So the way that one should think about it, if you're going to teach the Dharma, is that you're going to take seat on, you're going to take place on the seat of Dharma. So first of all, you offer prostration as a token of respect, generating a sense of respect to the Dharma. Then as you sit down, you see sometimes teachers snap their fingers, and it is said that that should be something that reminds oneself of impermanence, right? So this is the type of attitude that you should take when you sit down and start to teach the Dharma. You should, first of all, develop a sense of respect, but also remind yourself of impermanence and death.
된 토지가 대고야 문도 삼성으로 가서 생에 더 용적으로 대양 그 개발지기 돈으로 취를 구비체도 아니 취기 채웠던 비체도 아니 취시비 거들이야 아니 취능인 소리 된 토지가 대고야디 아니 취 개발된 비체도 아니 제스.
That being the case, you might then be thinking that, so what's the point with having a high seat, like the one that Geshe is sitting on? If one should develop this humble approach and respectful and humble approach, then why is the teacher sitting on a high seat? Well, it is not for the sake of the teacher, but it is in order to engender a sense of respect for the Dharma. So for example, we as students, we listen to the Dharma and we want to do that with a respectful attitude. So then we should see the seat of Dharma teachings with a sense of veneration or a sense of respect.
되게 간지 간주 최생년다 년 3월 동안에 아니 최래야 아니 대구다 지구 아니 하장 지구고 대구고 어디 니땡고요 디여바이나 최도 짜친고 진진투바이나 아니 최디 냠년 지야야 배준 지야야 상월로에 뱅고르스 이니 최 냠년 제비가라네 수수 샘 마키바 샘 마롱바디 아니 셰야기 탑을 줘야니나 배 아니 뜻을 첨부든지 차고 어렸어.
In short, this section indicates the type of attitudes that we should have as students or as teachers when a certain discourse is given. So if we develop those states of mind in which a mind is respectful, there is devotion, there is faith, there's a sense of respect for the teachings, it will help the practice. It will bring an immense benefit to the practice in a sense that when you experience an unhappy state of mind, when your mind is unwell, and you find ways in your practice to draw upon Dharma teachings, to implement it in your practice, it becomes very relevant to alleviating whatever mental pain or unhappiness there is there at the moment.
다들 숨바도 미세 숨바디 어느 딘디기 그런 디지 케치니다 최 간지 시고 그래스나 최시술들이스 삼바도 조위고니 당불로드 잠주 시비기 송 뒤싱아 샤데스 아니 뜻지 제 최다 최마오볼이야 아니 뒤심은 저 나이 토니 아니 최드생 최시고 그래스라.
Let's look at the next point in the text, which explains the type of attitude and activities to explain with. So there are 2 points, attitude and activities. Let's begin with the attitude, which draws from the sutra requested by Sagaramati. So Sagaramati puts forward the 5 perceptions. First, of generating the perception of oneself as a doctor. Then of the Dharma as medicine. The third is of one listening to the Dharma as a patient. Then of the Tathagata as a holy being, and of the mode of the Dharma as abiding for a long time.
어제 단두싱아 데스다 질로모고지 라나 멤버들 출면도 취님벌 네버다 디시시벌 기부 담바다 취주출라 진리비 디시께바다 되는 콜라 잠바곰 거리스 와 취시시 유려야 취시시 유려야 잠지 매바이나 아니 취시시 유려야 편도 무슨 꼰랑이 취시세 됐다 용야 매주 시작으로 왔으라.
So there are 5 perceptions that you should adopt in your attitude if when a Dharma teaching is given. So oneself, the teacher, is a doctor. The Dharma is medicine. Of the one listening to the Dharma as a patient. Of the Tathagata or Buddha as a holy being. And of the mode of the Dharma as abiding for a long time. And on top of that, as well as the development of loving kindness towards the people around. So when a certain teaching, a discourse, is given, then you should do that with a sense of loving concern for the audience. It shouldn't be done without a sense of loving concern, without loving kindness to the audience.
단디 갑디 나라야 단당 최신의 나차가서 나라야 송교도 지레도스 나라야 송교 디케란 중 나라야 딱지 지지니 녜게 가르치도 아니 원이지 나자라야 용친 나여서 용친 삼반남다기 직취지 아니 라나 삼지 랍자지 라나 삼지 용댕인sol이야 원이 미콜이야 참바도 무기 아니 딱지 지나 제적으로서 Dizu che goyachi, dizu tong goyachi, dizu yo goyachi. Ta di meba ina, ani kansheba di tongba soroji chago resro.
Lama Tsongkhapa here explains the attitude that the teacher and the student should adopt. So in that sense, we can look at the tasks that are assigned to us in our different roles, right? So we could be Geshe as a teacher, and here Lama Tsongkhapa is speaking of his role as a teacher, but we should also look at our role as disciples or students. So if this is Geshe's role as a teacher, then we need to assess that. Like, for example, we come here in order to listen to a set of teachings, and we want to also observe how is Geshe handling it. Is he doing it with a pure attitude, with a pure intention, with a sense of concern or loving kindness to others? Is he carrying out his required attitude in the way that Lama Tsongkhapa is explaining it?
yen tola tobe chado ta chishur chibi lelo ta yang chibi ngawi kyen ta dani joshi jingi kyen le ta chele peju cheba ta sego la soba sansin la tawa pandi ranshin gi sanji tubi chi de tembi sonum teni dag devi yoshi to nyam sambos.
Sorry. In continuing with the section, it says, the envy born from anxiety that others become superior, the laziness of putting things off, the discouragement of fatigue due to explaining things over and over again, praising oneself and talking about others' faults, the reluctance to learn text about the Dharma, as well as concern for material things such as food and clothing should be abandoned, thinking those very merits from teachings for the sake of my own and others' enlightenment are the provisions of my happiness.
Terda somebody goes, the jaw carjigos landi, even this true chishin, Zanda the Dembri, Kurzama Kundi, Zanshin, Yitong, Subshosu, Subshosus, Chuji Chiden, Dana Kuni, Dirt Surgery, Hapiana, T. Koi Paxi Yatsunji, to Dutton Dugiri, Kana Molas, Vengan Pachicha Minival, Original Shiva Zombie, Hardin Bella, Jengin Dan Rabdusawa. So
we spoke about the attitude that you should have when teachings are explained. Let's looking at the activities. It says, having washed and dressed in immaculate clean clothes, you sit down in a clean and pleasant place on a cushion on a Dharma throne. If you then chant a mantra for subjugating demons and gods of the demonic categories will not come closer to you and then come closer to you than a perimeter of 100 yojanas. And even if they do come, they will not be able to create any obstacles, as it says in the sutra requested by Sagaramati. Therefore, you should chant the mantra and with an extremely radiant facial complexion, give your explanations with examples, logical proofs, and quotations, factors for ascertaining their meanings.
and Kapkalaya, Chara, Tumatsu, sort of Tamag, Tumatsu, sort of Anichi, but Dindi, Travi, Tumatsu, Sonaji, and it common Zuvaina, Yabuyomares, Kansana, in the Tens Archimuta, Kanji, and Tuta to Kosu Tuta, and the Chendin Telea, Chachu, which is a Nejinza, and Dino Zobosedana, and the Yabuyomaras, Chitani.
So in general, this section advises us about the type of behavior, practice or behavior that we should adopt in the course of teaching the Dharma. So the point that Lama Tsongkhapa emphasizes here is keeping up behavior clean. So it's good to think about it. Rather than disregarding it, looking down or belittling Lama Tsongkhapa's explanation, that would be a negative thing to do. Then we should, as much as possible, try to think of the meaning of this section and put it into practice. So for example, we come here to sessions of Dharma teaching. So as Lama Tsongkhapa says here, it's, if you come to listen to the Dharma, it's good to come clean, in that you wear clean clothes. You don't have to, Geshe said that you don't have to go completely out of your way to wear a fancy dress, but no, we all come dressed here to the teachings. Then it's good also when you enter, for example, a space like that, then if to make sure that we're as clean as possible. For example, if your body or clothes are completely soaked in scents of alcohol, smoking, and so forth, it's not really good, is it? Or other kind of things that don't have bad smell. It's good to come clean as much as possible, because we also consider this place as a place that hosts representations of the body, speech, and mind of enlightened qualities, right? The enlightened qualities of body, speech, and mind. So as such, as we come here to a space like that, come to receive teaching, so it's good to come in the cleanest way possible.
라 어치고야디 기침부차고레스 인다 둘 살주비 나세지 나 림부치도 이내야 둘 살주비 나 디랑도 마토고 이내야 아니 실험님 못되는 디그리스 람름 단다 람름 체시다서 디나노니 체노 실험님 못되는 디그리스 송도 디체다 지단이 야부베도 왔으라.
Now, there are a couple of things that this section mentions, like, for example, it says that having washed and dressed in immaculate, clean clothes, you sit down in a clean and pleasant place on a cushion of the Dharma throne. If you then chant a mantra for subjugating demons, so there is a mantra like that, but even if you don't know this mantra, which is rather long, if you recite the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra's mantra, that's also okay. This is a comment that is found in another text that provides annotations to a few Lamrim texts that were compiled together. So even if you cannot say that those long mantras, you can still suffice with the mantra of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra.
박세 야춘제를 두다 두기리기 하나 용구마레세 때 깜드 두 문진체데 두조디 최라야 마강행기 최체라야 챙하게 용진 발제 땅딩기 아니 하담에도 수임바이나야 깜디다 둘라야 찌고버리스.
Now, when it says here that if you then recite the mantra for subjugating demons and the gods of the demonic category will not come closer to you than a perimeter of 100 yujanas. The whole idea here of a demon is someone that has a sense of dislike to the Dharma, that can impede or hinder those activities. So if you recite those mantras, such beings, such demons, gods or human beings are said to not come closer than a perimeter of 100 yujanas.
Diza bena ngazu ningola shervni mushtenchi ani dohpat yabe kadla ya mebatsu di sambang bata jawatsi bata la soba ani dohvar kyuji mebar kyuji shevar kyuji seni ani malam tegyagoras ti shervni mushtenchi do shervni muta tomani yila tempitoni and dinji malam jabaina kezi ji ani chulaya magange chulaya parchi chindengi 용바이네야 아니 발치 집이 니범에가 차도 그랬어 어딘지 송도 왔으라.
So then you might recite such a mantra. A harm-doer will not come closer, and even if they do, they would not be able to harm you. It is said that now you recite this mantra. In some teaching sessions, we also recite a section which involves clapping our hands and saying that may all obstacles, hindering conditions will be eliminated and so forth. So it is said that when you integrate that into your way of thinking and into your activities, into your practice, then you keep those hindering forces at bay. Either they do not come, or even if they come, they're rendered incapable of inflicting harm upon you.
Da shinjin dang rabdu sabar savi tengi bi yangla pedang ani tensik ta kanji ani gyunsen yoba ani tenyang ji pi ta ji kongi long yoba odimji tonga drogoris.
The section ends with saying, therefore you should chant that mantra with an extremely radiant facial complexion. Give your explanation with examples, logical proofs, and quotations. These are all factors for ascertaining the meaning of the texts.
Tadini shibadiri shibadi ta chudi 수토나야 시나 디그리베스라나 디그마리 송거스라 수투투레야 쳬디 시에초 마레스 어나 수레 시에고레스라운디 다디니 어디송거레스.
Let's look at the next point in the text, which explains the distinction between who the explanation should and should not be given to. So a question might arise. Is it permissible to give the Dharma to anyone, anybody, whatsoever, whomsoever? Or should you give some consideration to whom an explanation is given? So this section says that it shouldn't be taught to anyone. You should look at certain distinctions made here. So first off, you shouldn't teach the Dharma without first of all being asked to do so. That being the case to begin with, it says in the sutra on the discipline, the Vinaya Sutra, do not act without being asked to, which means that do not teach the Dharma if others haven't asked you to do so. So what point is made in this section that says, do not teach if you're not being asked to teach? Well, if you teach others and they do want to listen to those teachings, they have an interest in the teachings, if they have faith in the teaching, it will be beneficial to them. But if you teach those who haven't asked for those teachings, who do not want those teachings, let alone not being able to help them, there's a danger that it will bring about harm, that would be detrimental.
the kabu shuji race tinza and so to tani chue nishi chibi kabdulaya and chue nishi chibi tenda damaji chabalaya and chue teba and chue shesalaya ichi yoga or dibji sangu does ra.
The section in some sense also highlights the unique way of receiving the blessings of the Dharma. So if you wonder, what is that special pathway using which you can receive the blessings of the Dharma? Well, that pathway is, to begin with, is based on faith at the very root. Right? Faith is that which facilitates the receiving of the blessings. Without faith, it is difficult for the blessings of the Dharma to be attained. So if you're spending some time in teaching or listening to the Dharma and you want to turn this event into a meaningful encounter, the person that is teaching the Dharma should have faith in the Dharma. The person that listens to the Dharma should have trust in that.
콜이야 이 콜을 취시는 그 아니 이천도 문도 고출이야 대반도 문도 따지 치치 로 아니 이천 내봤던 대반이 왔던 리지 뭐나 아니 즉 대박 마기 봐도 이치 말레 봐도 아니 취시나 지금 말했어. 다 대박 용이지다 이치 용이 되니 용이 지금 봐이나 그소 마담이야. 아니 취시에 거야 돼야 내가 차고 그랬어.
가서 마소나양 취시와 있는 냉가치요.
취시에 고 그랬어.
So then, the point that is made here is that those that have no faith, those that have no trust, are not the recipients of Dharma teachings. They are not considered to be vessels, suitable vessels or suitable recipients for the teaching. But those that have faith, those that have trust, those who do want the teaching, there are certain circumstances in which, even if they do not ask for teachings, you should give it to them.
Disons she sombatar sowa matabar minchiji sowa debalaya ne tabata ne disina mazoya shederwani engizi gabul sonla sangi kamji sangi sonyores kunje shenun devin dole sonsosta chün ini chün nyembata chün shenbi kabdulaya kunje shenbata karkari ini lugun dutangre ani chi 나그 쫄럼 계단 상황도 아니 devin donanolaya 창상직 송여레스 이제 까범들이야 안 기부지 송으면 송거다.
The section begins with the quotation from the Discipline Sutra, which says, "Do not act without being asked to." Accordingly, you do not teach without having been asked, and even when someone asks, you should examine the vessels. No, you should still check out to see whether the person is a suitable person for those teachings. Do they have faith? Do they have trust, and so forth? However, knowing someone to be a vessel, it is acceptable to teach even without having been asked, as it says in the King of Concentration Sutra, a sutra that was taught by the Buddha himself. Further modes of conduct are set forth in the Sutra on the Discipline, which means that there's detailed indications of the attitudes and the behavior that we should carry when teachings are being given. What is the physical posture, the bodily posture that we should adopt, with the type of attitude and activity or behavior that we should listen to this teaching. So all these great details are found in the Sutra on Discipline.
Dan devin donanolaya zo di kunje karsoonslavni 단지 담보도 찍으래 마서 아니 최시 랑고마레 세 데니 베나 최시사디 아니 야 랑지 최싱이 마 대지 아니 최시 랑고마레스 조긴조긴이야 아니 최시 랑고마레스 아니 지최 아니 시사디 베나 담마부 열서라 아니 어디서 레스타라 말씀드렸어요.
When it says further modes of conduct are set forth in the Sutra on the Discipline, the Vinaya Sutra, so there are quite a few statements that are made in that sutra. One of them is the one that is found at the beginning of this section: do not act or do not teach without being asked to. Also, there are certain scenarios which are mentioned, like, for example, do not teach us while you're sitting down and others are standing up. That's one indication that is made. Do not teach the Dharma while you're walking along the road together with others. So different scenarios, different situations are mentioned for when it is permissible and when it is not permissible to teach the Dharma.
당아주 지 삼자라야 유롱 소속이 비게 가서 다지 공식이 토니 개발이 걸어서 나 당부 될래디 니동 주실래야 될래디 니 세우시 스팅들 남서버무지 될래 아니 나저 비기 최대여서 가든들이야 너무지게 깔람나서 다들이가 당부 싸버려 다 지게로물 싸버내자 아니 너무지 깔람나데 거들이야 가신 뒤에 빼디야 니치 샘라야 마딩인데 조시 서스라 지금 듣다 니거 미스스기 다지 롱비 공시를 차디들이야 샘래야 공원의 게임도 하스라 공원의 게임이 더 디치어는 거야 공원 기체시 손에서 아니 믹스 차그면도 성성하지
Having said that, of course, when you look at different venues and different places that the Dharma is taught, you should give consideration to different traditions and different social codes, because it's not that the social code that is explained in the scripture is exactly like the social code that is accepted in new places where the Dharma arrives to. Like, for example, Geshe said that when he arrived at Chinrazik Institute in 2014, it was he was new to this surrounding, new to this culture. Soon after he arrived, Lama Sopa Rinpoche visited Chinrazik Institute, and he went down to the stupa and gave a talk at the stupa. And while he was giving a talk, Geshe saw that a few people were just kind of lying down on the ground, kind of just taking a rest, lying down on the ground. And Geshe said that it felt really uncomfortable, kind of coming from a Tibetan Buddhist perspective. People don't do that. But then Geshe said that having stayed here for some time, he came to say that actually, even if people do that, it's not that in the mind there is a sense of disrespect. You can still in your mind, even if you're lying down, you can have this untainted motivation or attitude. So although this is what the scripture says, Geshe said that you should also give some credence to some social codes in different places.
the 공은 삼만남다 유유로지 다 가진가 로 마보로지라 데베리야 도 심주지는데 공은 삼만남다 유유지 동고도 진짜 때 키시시로스라 아니 간선은 아주 수수기 롱발이야 직 파미니 난추생이 자원이니 아니 공유 등유여 말이 다지 직지들 논용시지다 너 십중갑 출사 자원이는 로여 말어스 딘딘 로 메시지래야 미망슈 직직다지 아니 추케밀랭이 아니 추루 베트 추루 셴바든지 이나야 베트 동안 지진 아니 난주인가 용해디 केवल मामू जी की भाषा दां हिंदी की तो भी ये बाती सिवरवास इंजा समन्नमदा इंजा अनि टेलेमिक्सी की समदोस.
Having been here for some time, for a few years, Geshe said that he actually observed that people do have a really sincere and genuine motivation, pure motivation. Particularly taking into consideration that it's not that for most of us, Buddhism was the tradition, the religion that we grew up with at home. We discovered some interest in the Buddhist tradition, and through that, this genuine wish to know more and to explore more has arisen in our mind. And as such, we do approach that with a genuine and pure motivation.
다순번니스 대대르셰바단 님비 게잔남 상부적으로 소비 nomatabi yenda bar chawas da nganzu chuni she khang chebadi gewadi ani zo da dishnu gorda gewadi zosan la ya ani ngo chekores ro ngo chekores.
Looking at the next section in the text, there is generally how to proceed at the end of a Dharma discourse. So the first point that explains what to do at the end of a Dharma discourse says the roots of virtue of teaching and listening in this way should be sealed by means of pure aspirational prayers, such as the prayer of good conduct or the Samantabhadra king of prayer conduct, which means that altogether, whatever roots of virtue were created in giving a Dharma discourse, all these roots of virtue should be dedicated to complete enlightenment.
네, 그 공기 동로디 건다 단다지 공공 딘지 케고야 류기 남길 쩔는 간지 돈베 아니 가스거다 구십다 되면 제거야디 아니 쉐려야 쉐디 자친부 이마디 자친부 통약체 제 통약체 아니 Tsultrim zintuya chetu kanji chule ya kubi chetu and the gore is raw.
But before proceeding with that point, there's one more thing that Geshe wanted to say with respect to the previous section. So we look at the type of motivation that we carry into a teaching session, the body posture that we adopt, the type of behavior and activities that we engage with in the course of the Dharma discourse. And all of them are oriented towards developing a respectful attitude. Now, when we develop a respectful attitude towards the Dharma, we come to see the Dharma as being very precious to us, to our heart. So that now we want to see the Dharma as being very important to us. We are capable of seeing the Dharma as being important to us. So in correcting our motivation, looking at the type of physical approach that we have to that, we are all gearing ourselves up to develop a respectful attitude towards the Dharma. So we read through the first point in the conclusion of a teaching session. Let's look at the benefit of doing this. There is no doubt that if the Dharma is explained and listened to in this manner, in just one session, the advantages stated above will arise.
Lodore, Medore, Zishina Soba, Kandajin Bainaya, Gugen Yons Soba Tsana, and then Jebadi Kigdos. Gugen Mansana, Guyanga with some Yobat, then Jebin Jungum Yabadi, Sev Shujiros, Tita Chibata, and Tita Chibaris, Chu Pendok and Jebadia, Chu Yeshi Chibigi, Tamil Jeba Pendo Yomayantia. Any nishi chebadi, Nella Drummond Tony, any Tama Pendo Yomon, Tito rallying of Civil Shujros.
This is really the case in the sense that when we look at the type of result that we want to accomplish. First of all, if you look at that in terms of an external result, so you might be planting a garden or forest or a field. If you want to grow a certain product, if you want to have a certain harvest, you need to create a full set of causes and conditions. Whatever you want to grow will arise only if the full set of causes and conditions will be assembled. Whereas if you have only a portion of the required causes and conditions, whatever you seek to grow will not arise. And the same thing also applies to the Dharma. So if at the end you want to get something out of your Dharma involvement, then you should also make sure that the way that the Dharma is taught, the way that you listen to the Dharma, is done in a wholesome way, where all the right causes and conditions come together in order for you at the end to get the right result.
Pendo Mayadi Pile Tata Chico, and it's singing sound, Tanda Dambajilia, and Jatu Mevaza, and a Lodun, this is Chignin, Chichedabainaya, and Chugi, Monsandia, Mapayadi, Tiredos, on the Chu Muni, Chu Muni, Pendo Mevaji, Imbadinits out in the Remulas.
So we might have been involved with the Dharma for some time, and we either teach the Dharma or listen to the Dharma. And if you find that you haven't been able to get the benefit that you wanted to, it is related to not having done it in a fully qualified way, not having ticked all the boxes, not having done it in a way that is fully qualified by all the attributes that need to have been in place when teaching or listening to the teachings were there. So it's not that from the side of the Dharma doesn't have the ability to benefit us. It's rather that when we look at the way that we engage with the Dharma, we should make sure that in all the different elements of the process of our involvement with the Dharma, we're doing it in the right way, in a fully qualified way.
제 최니시 내도 송을 때니스 최니시 내도 송을 때니 가리운 거랬는데 최도 최모라 마크걸로 소비 내기트바 카르사바 탐지 아니 뒤윤tun동 제노로야 다도 그랬어 살도 소바 탐지냐 아니 랭이 살도 소바 탐지냐 대마다도 베기려야 참체바다 아니 녀비추 내도 송이 셰비 당가기냐 결레 펜도본 교가 시리 제나 담방 하마 탐지 텔라 내덴제지 캬버도 당한 디 라마 코만 남스 그 조지 반대 아디션 쯔비 라마 코만 내데시 체와 제요레스
So there is no doubt that even if the Dharma is explained and listened to in this manner, in just one session, the advantages stated above will arise. Due to the act of listening and explaining the Dharma, hitting home all the karmic obscurations accumulated previously by not respecting the Dharma and those who expound it, and so forth, are purified. And all the ones being newly accumulated are nipped in the bud. We continue with the next point that says the general mode of behavior of holy beings. Due to the manner of listening, hitting home, the instructions set forth bring about benefit in the continuum. Seeing this, all the earlier holy masters in general were delighted about this, and especially the former gurus of this instruction preserved in it with utmost diligence.
예, 더 니네 당가 전부 낭데스. 더 오니기 더 당가 전부 쇼지레스. 이제 들려야 네버 많이지. 로나 마규리 쉐사라 야차와 제삼 셰장. 아니 하도도 봐봤다. 윤이 쉐테니 니몽도 조수조 치나와. 쉐마원 항오스.
The final point in that section comes at the heading of the advice to cherish them, since it is a great fault to turn away from them. These are evidently great instructions. If you do not reach certainty about them and your attitude does not change as is often the case, no matter how much the profound and vast Dharma is explained, you will become like a god fallen to the ranks of a demon. And that very Dharma will become an aid to the afflictions.
저다 비다지 최다 최마와라야 마쿠바 깨바이나 아니 디바 빼침부 남규 디발레 남규 가지다 지 에네 주시바레 아니 참마시바레 아니 소처발라 소바 마지말레발라 소바디 아니 지단 디바 침부로 왔을 때 딜리짱 아니 최시발라야 아니 마쿠바다 최레야 마쿠바 차바나 딜 디바 칠 drugosaras.
This section highlights the great fault in developing a disrespectful attitude towards the Dharma and the teacher, the one who expounds the Dharma. So in general, we do speak about negative actions. We say that, for example, lying is a negative action. Lying, divisive speech, killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, all of them are regarded as negative actions. But even more so, greater than that, are attitudes of disrespect towards the Dharma and the one that expounds the Dharma.
가서 저거 때문에 디바디 샤야의 탐매주 차도고라서 남규의 디바이나 출 때문에 샤 초고라다 다 출라 이제메와 지용디 다 디바디 샤야의 탑이요 말았어 디바 다야의 탐매주 this is the 아니 빼마서 년가 친구 차고라스.
The reason for this being considered to be grave negativities is that if you develop a sense of disrespect to the Dharma and the one that teaches the Dharma, you're rendering it incapable of purifying negative actions. You will not be able to purify all negative actions if you have a sense of disrespect to it. With other negative actions, those that we've mentioned previously, like killing, stealing, and so forth, you can still purify them even if you have acted in this way. But then if you develop a sense of disrespect to the Dharma, then you're losing the ability to purify negative actions because you will not be using that which makes it possible to purify negative actions.
대회는 세직니 추나 정이 발시 세웠다 베베 페이지에 임베스 님바다 셰발람도 돈순들라 로단 덴바는 임베니 제바다 님바 종리기 많다 제단 비기 많다레스나 많다 비기 간지 세단 덴바리 제데 아니 로고레스 드니다지 담가 덴비기다 혼주촌디 미체로 시제로시
Continuing with the rest of this paragraph. Therefore, since it is like that, they say, if you err on the 1st of the month, you will do so until the 15th. It's a saying, a proverb that is common in the Tibetan tradition. So the wise strive for this method of transforming what has been heard and explained into the path, and make every opportunity to explain and listen into something worthwhile. For this is the best preliminary for teaching the instructions. So Geshe would like to finish this session earlier today. We have teaching with His Holiness the Dalai Lama at 12:30, so we will have them here at the Gompa, right?
Yes.
So Geshe wants to give people the opportunity to take a break before His Holiness' teaching, and also taking into consideration that often it starts earlier, right? So it starts the session earlier. So we'll have a pee break or whatever break we need, and then come back to receive teaching from His Holiness. He's going to teach on Chandrakirti's supplement to the Middle Way. So before we leave it here for now, let's just dedicate the virtue that we have created by listening to the teachings. Chanchu Sencho Rinpoche, Make Bana Kegyuchi, Geba Nyamba Me Bayang, Kone Gondu Bewasho, Gewadi Nyududa, Lama Sangye Tugune, Dowa Chikyama Lupa, Dehi Salago Pasho, Kanri Rawe Kowe Shinkanzu, Pendan Dewa Malu Chumwene, Chenre Siwan Tenzin Gyatsoi, Shape Site Padu Tengyuchi, Tu Tu Jan Chin Jan Gun Yahweh, Tenzin Kyon Pewe Kun Soto Porse, Chosun Kowe Le Manzu, Ada Sozu Shikundu Shate.
Thank you.
So for those of you at home and those of you here, so the teachings, His Holiness' teaching is going to take place today, tomorrow, and the day after, every day at 12:30. You can find details on the way to link into the live webcast on YouTube. Sorry, the Dalai Lama's website. It's going to be on YouTube Live. So dalailama.com/live. And the text is also provided on the website, I think. They have a link to the text. Yeah. So you're most welcome to do it. And for those of you here, please come along. We're going to show the teachings on the screen. Yeah. And you can also, when you come up to the teaching, you can come fully, with fully, how do you say, prepared. You can get coffee and cake from the cafe. Buy all the coffee and cakes you can and come up.
If you have some lunch in the room,
yeah.
There's also a microwave down there in the kitchen.
Nigel.
Okay, just remind people to, if you haven't already signed in somewhere on the property or our credit register from the one shop. Yeah, I think I heard the car. I know.
Maybe I'll try to go and see her during the break.
Well, Geshe and I were planning to go down, maybe you want to.
Well, I think that kind of the vehicle is too small for two big personalities. Actually, maybe it would.
Maybe.
Yeah.